I thank the distinguished chairman, and I want to make my remarks not to the Senate. I want to commend the Senate and the chairman for adopting the amendment we did on the floor here 3 weeks ago. I really want to address my remarks to the President of the United States, to Dr. Summers, to Dr. Christine Romer, the head of the Council of Economic Advisors to the President, to Secretary Geithner, and to my friend Rahm Emanuel. I want to just a second make a case for what the Senate did, which has been deleted from this budget resolution. And I want to start it looking back 15 months ago. 15 months ago, when we came in January of last year, we were beginning to see foreclosures, beginning to see the housing market decline. And I introduced at that time, along with other members of the Senate, a housing tax credit for the purchase of foreclosed and vacant houses. It was scored at a cost of $11.4 billion. The Finance Committee rejected that amendment in the Senate, saying it cost too much. 90 days later, the Senate passed a $150 billion economic stimulus bill recommended by President Bush that gave every American $300 or up to $1,200 per family to stimulate the economy. And the economy spiraled down. In July of last year, we had dealt with a housing bill that created hope for homeowners and FHA program expansions. But I tried to amend that with a housing tax credit, and to the credit of the House and the Senate, the conferees ended up creating a $7,500 interest-free loan for first-time home buyers. It didn't work, but it was a sincere effort to try. Then we came back this year, and Senator Lieberman, myself, and others reintroduced the $15,000 tax credit for any family that buys and occupies as their home any single-family residence in America for at least 3 years. The tax credit of $15,000 is a substantial incentive. It is tied directly to exactly what happened in this country in 1975, when America offered a $2,000 tax credit for anyone to buy one of the 3 years' worth of standing vacant inventory that was on the market in the United States. We passed it at that time and exited that recession within 12 months, re-stimulating the housing market, which would lead us into that particular recession. Well, it's housing that led us into this recession, and it's housing that's causing precisely what the chairman just referred to, and that is the deflation that is going on in the United States of America. 1 in 5 homes today is underwater, meaning they owe more on their home than it's worth. The equity lines of credit have been wiped out. Families' basic major asset and their net worth has been wiped out. And the housing market continues to be a collection of short sales and foreclosures. The current tax credit we have, which is now $8,000 to a family as long as their income doesn't exceed $150,000 and as long as it's their first home purchase, is a fair effort to start. But our problem is not with first-time home buyers. Our problem is with move-up, with transferees, with people who have been playing by the rules, making their payments. They're transferred. They're scared to take the transfer because they're afraid they can't sell their house, and they're afraid there's no buyer incentive to get them there. I want to urge the President, Mr. Summers, Dr. Summers, Secretary Geithner, Christine Romer, Dr. Romer, and Rahm Emanuel to consider this. That $15,000 tax credit, if it was passed today in America for 12 months, would cost, as scored by CBO, $34.2 billion. Now, how much is $34.2 billion? It is 5.4% of the President's set-aside of $634 billion for health care. It is 1/100th of 1% of the $3.5 trillion budget. 1/100th of a percent of the amount of the budget. Don't you think we could provide an incentive that's that inexpensive to motivate a housing market to return, to begin to reflate values back and put equity in the pockets of the American people and return our economy? Experts have estimated, and I'm not saying I'm an expert, this is experts have estimated, that if that tax credit had have passed last year, it would have created 700,000 home sales and 587,000 jobs. Well, Mr. President, 587,000 jobs is the number of jobs we've been losing a month. We need to find a way to create that kind of number. And more importantly, let me give you the intriguing fact about the 700,000 house sales. Current home sales in America are at 500,000. An average year in this country in the last decade was 1.2 million. A good year was 1.5 million. Well, if you add that estimated 700,000 that would be produced by the credit to the existing 500,000, you would return the United States to a balanced housing market. You would begin to appreciate the value of those houses back toward where they were. You will restore equity lines of credit for the men and women of the United States of America. You will employ people in the construction industry. And my last point, Madam President, is this, and it's very important. This housing recession and the difficulties in it now are in the developed lots that are standing, developed, and unsold, and the A, D, and C loans that have been made by the major banks around the country to fund those developments. Those loans are beginning to come due. They are threatening the integrity of the community banking system and the United States banking system. There is one thing and only one thing only that will solve that, and that is for those lots to begin to be absorbed. And the only way to do that is to get house buyers back in the market with an incentive to come back and buy. If the tax credit passed, we don't have that much of a vacant inventory available in the country. It would immediately stimulate the employment of construction workers to go into home building. So my plea is to thank the Senate for its wisdom in adopting the $15,000 credit, express my deep disappointment in the conference committee for dropping it, and encourage our president and the leadership of our country to just give a second thought to what this credit could do. It seems like to me that 1/100th of 1% of the budget is worth a gamble to create almost 600,000 jobs and 700,000 home sales. Restore equity lines of credit to America's families, and most importantly of all, re-energize the great engine that is the American economy. The greatest stimulus in the world is not a gift of money. It is an incentive to invest and for American families to return their confidence in this great economy that we have in this great country. And so I urge the leadership of the country to consider that. I thank again the chairman of the Budget Committee and every member of the Senate for its unanimous support of it. And I yield back the floor in sincere hopes that when this speech goes to the White House, they'll read it, they'll check the numbers, and they'll ask the question, is 1/100th of 1% of this budget worth the chance to restore the economy of the United States of America? And I yield back.